abiding in God. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda often emphasized, more often to his disciples than to the general public, but also to everyone generally, for it was a universal teaching, the importance of attunement. For divine understanding cannot be created, it must be perceived. To the disciples, Yogananda spoke of the importance of attunement with the Guru. To others, he urged the importance at least of attuning oneself to higher consciousness. Can an eagle rise without support from the sustaining air? Jesus Christ said in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 15, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing. If a man abide not in me, he is cast forth as a branch, and is withered, and men gather them and cast them into the fire, and they are burnt. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. Herein is my Father glorified, that ye bear much fruit, so shall ye be my disciples. How can we abide in him? Jesus says, if my words abide in you. By words, he meant not only his spoken words, but his vibrations, his consciousness, of which the words are only an expression. We must abide by the teachings, but we must also absorb those teachings into ourselves, so that they become our own experience. For disciples of this path, the more in their hearts they live consciously in the presence of the Masters, the more they will find the divine presence living within them. And for all truth seekers, whether disciples or not, the more they live sustained inwardly by the awareness of God's presence, the higher they will find themselves soaring in wisdom and joy. For the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, I am the source of everything. From me, all creation emerges. Blessed with this realization, the wise, awe-stricken, adore me. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Good morning, happy Sunday again to everyone. This morning we decided to share our talk, so I will talk just a little and then Arudra will talk too. The topic of today is attunement. Attunement, as it was said in the reading, for those who are disciples of a master or for those who are seeking in a more general way of a greater reality. So we are all disciples of this greater reality. So here at Ananda we have several principles, guidelines that guide us through our life, and they have been developed through experience. And one of these principles is, what is trying to happen? It's a very interesting question, a question that we ask ourselves very often, because often in life, how do we confront situations in life when we need to take a decision in a group or whatever we need to face? So we think, what do I think is the best thing to do here? What is my opinion? What should we all do? What do I think? I would like all of us to do this. I don't want us to do that. So usually we bring a lot of opinions, thoughts into a situation, and we filter everything through our small little mind and little reality. So often we live our life like these blinders that horses use. So we live our life with these blinders, and we see our lives just from a little perspective, because our starting point is always I, and we know that the I is limited. So we live our life from a very limited point of view. But instead, when we ask the beautiful question, what is trying to happen? What changes with this question? It is beautiful, isn't it? Because it creates a type of openness. It's not personal anymore. What do I want that happens? But asking, what is trying to happen? With that question, I open myself and I invite an answer from a different place, from the universe, from God, from the masters. I invite the answer to enter within me and to guide me. So it takes away the personal perspective and creates a more broader perspective. We are in our community right now having we are creating a new vision for the expansion of our community. So for 3 Monday evenings, we meet together for more than 3 hours, and we are doing these some exercises, processes together to attune ourselves with what is trying to happen. And I have seen in these meetings, and I was very touched by these community meetings, where in a room of with 40 people, we meet together to take a decision, and in the end we all agree, but we don't have a system of voting. So how can this happen? How is it possible? It is possible because all of us, we put ourselves aside and ask the question, what is trying to happen? So in this vision that we're doing with the community right now, we are kind of closing our eyes, asking the Master and Swamiji, because they are our guides here, and we ask, let us see through your eyes the potentials, the possibilities for this community. What do you want to happen? Guide us. And then we share. And it's really beautiful. And it is so touching that when we do the sharings afterwards, there is like a common thread for some projects, because all of the little groups that envision things, they say similar things. So there's a very clear energy thread of what wants to manifest in this community. And how is this possible? It is possible because we attune ourselves to a greater vision, a greater reality, where there cannot be conflict. So we live in this flow, and this is a very practical way to live, especially when you live in a community, because it can be quite complicated when each single person says, I want this, I want that. So that would be an infinite meeting time. For example, the most advanced disciple of Yogananda, Rajarsi Janakananda, he was a great businessman and of great success too. And in the meetings that he had to lead for his business, while the others would talk about what needed to be done, how to solve things, and mentally trying to analyze the situation, as we usually do too, he would sit and practice Hong Sa. he would practice Hong So without saying anything. He would meditate during these meetings. So after 2 hours, where the others would exhaust themselves in discussions, he would just present a solution, and it would be the perfect solution, and everything was solved. And this is how we attune ourselves to a greater reality, because that opens us to super consciousness, where we can find solutions, a greater vision. And it's also a very practical thing, because we can learn how not to waste time. But there's more to it, because this makes us very happy. Because when we live in contact with this greater reality, we live our true nature. Because this little self, I need to decide, I need to solve, I need to do, it limits us. It limits us to this little self, which is not our true nature, and we're not feeling really well. So the more we can open up and attune with the greater reality, the more the joy and happiness fills our hearts. We are also, like in our farm at Ananda, we have a team that takes care of our farm, agriculture team, and we are also meeting regularly to create a project, which is a theater project about Saint Francis, and we are creating this for Jyotish's birthday in August. So we are doing this together with Giacomo Campioti, and it's a beautiful process that we are going through all together, and we sing Saint Francis songs together. And one of these songs, Dolce Sentire, which we sang yesterday when we had rehearsal, it always touches me, because it says, oh, the beautiful hearing, I am no longer alone, I am part of an immense life. Isn't that beautiful? Saint Francis lived like that, in contact with all and everything, in this greater reality. And he would sing and say how sweet it is to live in this greater reality, in contact with everything and everyone. And truly, the greater nature of all of us, or the greatest task for all of us, is being in contact with this reality, with God, with our highest self, because then we can channel this to others. The little love doesn't give us much satisfaction. Little kindness doesn't give us much satisfaction. Little peace doesn't give us much satisfaction. But when we open up, we can feel this greater flow of love, of beauty, of peace flowing through us and touching the lives of others. That's where true happiness lies. Another song by Saint Francis says, and it's a prayer of Saint Francis, it says, make us channels of thy peace, thy love, thy joy. Being channels, that's what we want to be, channels for God. And I want to finish, because my time is running up. I want to share with you a prayer. It's a prayer that we offer to God and to the Masters when we become ministers and light bearers. This is the prayer that we offer, but it's a prayer that each one of us, in his own words, can offer to God, to the universe, to the Masters, because it truly is a prayer that is born deep within each one of us, and only when we can live like that, we will be happy. Help me bear thy light to others, to carry the rays of thy love in my hands, in my heart, in my eyes, that they transmit thy power, thy vibration to others. Help me to be out of the way, that you may flow through me, to say the truth at all times, the beneficial truth, to give people what they need spiritually, and above all, to inspire them with your love. So as Mahiya said in the beginning, often we think in terms of what do I want, what is my opinion. And so we have two talks this morning. And I want to add some thought. And the first thought with which I want to begin is the secret of attunement is a greater vision, a more elevated vision. So this morning, while we were coming here, while we were walking to come here to the temple, a friend passed to give us a ride, and this friend is a mom. And so entering into the car, I looked down and I saw a card from a play. So there were some cards flowing around in that car from this play. And there was the mom, us, the two of us, and this card. And I thought, oh, we are three. And I took this card and I thought, yes, we are three. And then I looked on the other side and it said, no, we are not three, we are one. And it says Uno on the other side of the card, which is the name of the game. And it's so interesting because that's the power that comes from attunement. So it doesn't matter what number is in front, what color is in front or symbol. Behind, there's always one, always. In any circumstance, in any situation, behind is always one, uno. And the secret of attunement is, like it says in the reading, to abide in God, to live in this inner presence, which helps us to see this presence in all. And this weekend was a very beautiful weekend. We had a program about yoga and Christianity where we explored the principles that unite the essence of yoga and the essence of Christianity with Jaidev and together with Father Axel, who came as a special guest for this course. And if I think about this principle on how to live attunement, especially for those who are really dedicated to a spiritual path, we all come to a moment where we feel, I want to dedicate my life to experiment union with God ever more deeply until it becomes my true reality. And I want to share this reality with others. And for me, the greatest example was Swami Kriyananda. And I remember a few years ago, many years ago actually, when we married, the day before we passed we spent in Swami Kriyananda's house, and he was recording some episodes of Ask Me About Truth. And we invited Swami Kriyananda to come to our wedding, but we knew that in that period of time, it was a year before he passed, and his body was already unwell and he had so much to do. So we felt we couldn't not invite him, but also we didn't want him to feel pressured to come to our wedding. So we allocated to him all the reasons why he shouldn't come. So we said, we feel that we have to invite you because you are our spiritual father, but if you can't come, don't worry. So the day before, he didn't reply to that email, and the day before our wedding, we were at his place, and when he finished recording, he called us, and he says, so what do we do tomorrow? And I don't know what Mahia thought, but I thought, so what do we do tomorrow? We didn't really want to feel him that he had to come. But the thought came to me that I could tell him, maybe you could just, no, I only thought, maybe you could come just for the cake. And Swami said in that moment, maybe I could come only for the cake. And it was so beautiful because it made me understand how aware he was of our deep feelings. But what impressed me even more was a conversation that I heard someone had with Swami Kriyananda, where this person asked him, do you read other people's thoughts? And his answer was, I simply say what I feel Master wants me to say. And what impressed me so about this reply was, of course, such an attuned soul with divine consciousness and with the consciousness of every one of us. Of course, he perceives what we think, what we feel. It will be part of the spiritual path. It is part of the spiritual path that we become more sensitive to others' realities. But what touched me is that it didn't come from an egoic level. It didn't come from the mind. It didn't come from, I think you think this, so I say that. Instead, it was a continuous feeling of the divine presence of Master and to trying to be channel for that presence and trying to say what this presence wanted him to say. And there is a phrase in The New Path written by Swami Kriyananda, and Swami Kriyananda left his book because before we could launch it really, so there will be a relaunch of this book of him, and there are so many precious thoughts in this book, so many pearls. And one thing really touched me, and it stayed with me for years, and I'm still trying to absorb it and to understand it more deeply. And Swami Kriyananda was talking here about attunement, and he said that with time I perceived a power coming through my attunement, and he was talking about serving others. So he started feeling this power through attunement passing through him. And if we have the attunement, the presence with this divine presence, we don't need many words, because what passes is this power, and it changes ourselves and it changes others, this power. And I think that many of you know the story of Saint Anthony of the Desert. He lived more than 90 years completely withdrawn, secluded in a cave in the desert. And at a certain point there was a great discussion in the Christian world about Jesus, if he was man or divine, human or divine. And they didn't know how to resolve this, so they called Saint Anthony to come. And he had passed over 50 years at that point in complete silence, not talking to anyone except for his inner communion with God. So he arrived, I don't remember in which city it was, but he arrived and he enters this huge room with hundreds of people who were discussing amongst themselves. And at a certain point, he arrives in front of the room, and there was all this noise of people talking and discussing. And Saint Anthony says one phrase: I saw him. And the result was complete silence. And then Saint Anthony left again. He didn't need to explain, because in that phrase there was the power of his inner perception of the divine presence. And that is what attunement gives us. It gives us the power to perceive above all the divine presence within us, but also to help others to perceive the same presence. And that's what we received from Swami Kriyananda, and he received it from Paramahansa Yogananda. And this is what every disciple, every truth seeker tries to convey to others, to share with others. And I want to end with another story, because recently I've been in Russia with Darshan, and it was a trip of 3 weeks to different places, giving different intensive courses and Kriya, and it was a trip of so much inspiration. And one of the most inspiring things was seeing the devotees in Russia, their dedication, their sincerity, and also this really trying to be channels for the divine presence. And 2 of them told me, because they are creating a little community in the southeast of Russia, and it's called Yugananda, which means Ananda in the south. And what they tried to do in this area, they tried for some time to find the right place, and they prayed and meditated, asking for the guidance, asking, what is your will? And then they found this place, and they immediately felt a blessing on that place. But they continued to pray, give us a confirmation, help us understand if this is really the right place. And while they were there, in those few days that was last summer, they saw an organic shop in this really small village, maybe less than 1,000 inhabitants. There was this little organic shop, and they liked this shop somehow, and so they passed 3-4 times in front, and then they decided to enter, and they said, let's go inside and see what happens. So they entered this shop, and there's a couple of 2 people who are running this organic shop, and they start talking, and they ask, what do you do? And these friends, these 2 devotees, they say, we practice yoga, we practice meditation, we are disciples of Yogananda, who is the author of the autobiography of a yogi. And so the woman was talking to the woman of the shop owner, and when she mentioned Yogananda, the shop owner woman became all white, and she said, the author of autobiography of yoga, and she became all silent, and she said, no, I don't understand. And the husband says, tell her the story. And so the woman of the shop owner says, we found the autobiography of a yogi just a few months ago, and we are reading it right now. And just in these very days, I have been praying deeply, give me a sign that this is the right thing. And I prayed, send me someone who can help me to deepen what I found. And this is the secret of attunement from both sides. One is trying to be a channel for this presence, which goes above words, and the other side is asking always for guidance. Because if we ask for guidance, even if we feel that we are capable or not capable, or we think others could do better, or we feel I can't do this, but if we ask, we open the door to God, to the masters, to use us as channels. So I want to close the second talk with a little practice. So let's sit with a straight spine. And in this exercise, we want to go from 3 to 1. And this is the practice that Yogananda gave us to tune ourselves to divine consciousness through a master. So if you have a master, if you're a disciple of this path or another path, you can use your master as a channel. Otherwise, simply concentrate on the light in the spiritual eye. So let's take a double inhalation, tense the whole body, vibrate, exhale, relax. And again, and relax. And now concentrate in the spiritual eye. And for some moments, try to breathe through that point. Really try to feel that every breath stimulates, awakens that point, awakens the light, the peace that resides in the spiritual eye. And then let go of the breath and visualize, if you have a master or a saint to whom you feel attuned, visualize this master, this saint in the spiritual eye, or just visualize a being of light, something that represents the divine for you, and deeply call this master, this being towards you. And when you feel the touch of his presence, try to feel this infinite consciousness, this ocean of divine consciousness that penetrates through this divine form, entering through your spiritual eye. And then let go of the form and immerse yourself into the vibration, into this presence. Om Shanti. Amen.